To Destiny 2 or not to Destiny 2?
That's the question.
Hello and welcome to another bonus episode of Triangle Squared. This bonus episode is going to be our impressions on Destiny 2 now that we have played a good chunk of it and basically we've beaten the story, run a couple strikes, and even participated in the raid but not beat it.
We have gotten to I would say the second, no, actually, this is the main part in the raid. The very first part, there's a little thing you have to do, and then you're at the main part. We got to that. I got to one past that. So I'm roughly halfway through the raid, which we'll probably be doing again tonight. So
good.
Pretty fun raid.
Need to get that juicy raid gear.
Actually, did you know? Something cool about this game? If you are in a clan and your clan runs the raid, even if you did not run it with them, you still get raid gear.
That's pretty cool.
You miss out.
I noticed that they were really, even from the get-go, they're really pushing clan play, which is it's not weird, I guess I should say. It's good. I was just surprised they pushed clans as much as they did, considering how much they also pushed guided games, which is for people without clans.
Right, so it's kind of best of both worlds. If you're awkward and you don't like playing with strangers, you have guided games. Just don't jump in there and not talk to your teammates, because Nightfall and raids are something that you need extreme communication with. Okay, well, Saul,
we didn't do our intro. So, if you've never joined us, this is Triangle Squared, a PlayStation-based podcast where sometimes we talk about, whatever the hell we want.
Video games.
I am your host, Brett Beck, and alongside me, your other host, Mr. Solomon Bridges. Salamander. Salamander Bridges. That's his real name, named after a Confederate general.
I have a really good friend named Komodo.
You didn't even realize I said Confederate?
Confederate?
Yeah.
I don't get it.
Not true. Confederate is the South.
Oh, we're from Arkansas, so you never know.
Anyway.
You don't know with us.
We post to YouTube in video format every Monday, and then sometimes on Fridays, like this is going to be, and random other days for bonus episodes. There's no structure. But for our normal episodes, you can catch them every Monday at 10 a.m. PST, 12 noon CST on YouTube in video format or in audio-only format on any podcast service of your choice. We're on pretty much all of them besides Spotify because they're buttholes.
Yeah.
That's about the only thing that we can say there. So, Saul, now that we have done that, good sir, we're going to do like we did last time, I assume, right? We're gonna do a first half where we kind of just talk about general impressions of what we do like and what we don't like about the game from a non-spoiler of the story perspective. And then we will move into, because I do want to say I have pros and cons in the story department
I think
myself.
We can talk about everything. Since this game, obviously we're releasing this podcast a week and a half after it's come out.
So a lot of people have played it.
Yeah, a lot of people have played it. If you haven't, you've already probably looked at videos with strikes and stuff. So I think the first half can be nothing but mechanics, strikes, raids, all that good stuff.
General thoughts on the overall story without touching on anything crazy, yeah.
Well, I was going to say no story talk at all. Then spoiler will be...
Well, I just still, for people who want to know if we thought the story was good, I want to go off.
Oh, yeah, I guess that makes sense.
So, and then we'll just go into actual story bits of what we did and didn't like about the story itself.
Okay, yeah, that works.
Because I know we do have slightly differing opinions on that.
Kinda, I think.
But I think we still fall in the general rule of the same idea. So, interestingly enough, but Saul, I want to go ahead and say that my beginning, because of the way that I feel like I need to come at this, I want to start this saying I enjoy the game heavily.
Okay.
But I also want to say that when it comes around to me talking about things, I am probably going to start with my negatives first because I like to end on a positive note.
Okay.
I don't want to end on a negative note because I feel like that makes it seem like I'm talking bad about the game. And while I technically am, I'm not talking bad about the game in the sense that it's not a good game or that you shouldn't play it. These are just the qualms I have with it.
Okay, I think I'll do it somewhat similar.
Okay, so you think we should both just start with negatives?
Yeah, we'll start with any negatives we have, and then we'll get into the positives.
Okay, I will go ahead and let you start with what you think your first big negative is, if you have any.
Okay, so my first big negative is, and see, with me, Brett has often called me a Destiny apologist. So I do love Destiny very, very much. So all of my big qualms with this game, they're not big. They're kind of me feeling off about certain things.
That hopefully, I'm assuming, I think we kind of both stand on this. Any of the qualms we have, some of them can't be fixed with a patch because they're just what the base game is. But we hope to see them more addressed in future updates, I would assume, on both parts.
Right. So my major qualm, and like I said, this major qualm is nothing huge.
It's just your biggest qualm.
Yeah, and this is not saying anything spoiler. Like we said, this is nothing spoilers. I will mention the story in a general sense of that the story has a element in it that is really, really cliche in sci-fi stories. I'll elaborate more on that in the spoiler. And I thought, well, I was kind of let down by that because I really, really liked the lore of Destiny 1. I thought that was pretty original. And even then, the story in this game has original elements to it. It's just
the lore is still more or less original. And that comes down to, and I mean, I guess, and I'll kind of slightly interject with a negative and a positive here at the same time. So I've told you, the other day you were saying that Bungie's known for great stories. I don't quite agree. I think that Destiny's known for fantastic worlds and lore. Yeah. I think that they excel at that more than they excel at anything because it's already hard to tell a really good story in a first-person setting. It just is. You don't see your characters' reactions. Some people like that. Some people don't. Yeah. It kind of splits people. Some people don't even want a story. In a discussion today, someone was like, this was on Facebook. Somebody was like, best first-person shooter story of all time, and some people were saying different things. Somebody was like, a story in a first-person shooter game is like a story in a porno. It's not needed to be good.
Well,
that's where you fall on the line because, of course, my response to that was, well, I mean, sure, a good story doesn't have to be there, but a good story just makes it that much better.
Right, and see, my whole thing is that I think I'll mention this to you. I might have mentioned this to Joe. Is that I think it's a great story for a multiplayer based shooter. Because obviously it's not going to touch narrative style stories like BioShock. Because that is a good story. And Dishonored, those are really, really good stories.
You're right, and I'll give them the benefit of the doubt in that while you're right, you're also right in something that has like so little of competition.
Yeah, because there's Halo.
It doesn't mean much. Well, I'm talking about from a legitimate like multiplayer focus because the weird thing about Destiny is you can't put Destiny and Halo in the same same boat.
I do. I think that.
The way the story is, because you don't play Halo's story the same way as you play Destiny's story.
Well, yeah, it is a little different, but I think of them as about the same style as Call of Duty and Battlefield and Halo. That you have this 8 to 12 hour campaign, and then you're going to spend the rest of your time in multiplayer.
Well, yeah, I'm not saying that those games aren't multiplayer centric, but they're multiplayer centric with a split.
Yeah.
Whereas Halo's story is really meant to be played single player or couch co-op. Even if you play co-op online, it's still really, really limited. Whereas the whole point of this is to play your story in a connected world with your friends and with other players. And
that's just the basis off of like what my generalizations are towards the game is that I think that you're not going to find a first-person shooter that has a good story like this recently, aside from Advanced Warfare.
Okay.
Or Infinite Warfare.
Infinite Warfare. Yeah, we both do that.
Yeah, because there's not really a whole lot of first-person shooters out right now. There's not a whole lot of stories.
In a way, I'm glad first-person shooters have calmed down, but that's a different discussion.
Yeah.
So where's your negative in that?
Just the clichéness of the. There's a certain element that they use, and I
know is it like a general element? But
it made a really, really cool mission.
I have the same problem.
It made a really, 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 really cool mission. It was really, really cool scenery. There were some cool mechanics in that mission. But it's just something that has happened in Star Wars, Star Trek, and all kinds of other things. So we're gonna get more into that in spoilers. But it's something that it didn't bother me, but it was kind of just like, really.
Yeah, I got you.
Why is this here? That, and then a lot of people are going to say that the shaders and the power-ups that you can buy with real silver and real money is a problem. And a lot of that did come out within the first couple of days. They did not realize how many of those you get, so I actually have no qualms with that. I have three different...
I do want to slightly interject before you go too far out of this area, because I do want to know what it is, and this falls into the camp of, again, not in a bad sense necessarily, because everybody's an apologist to something. That's just life. When you like something, you're more likely to defend it.
Right.
When you really like it, and Destiny's very important to you. I like it, but it's never been as important to me as it has been to you. So with that being said, what is it about Destiny to you that keeps its DLC model, which I honestly kind of think is a little shady, but
shady,
shaders. But
I was like, there's a pun there. I just didn't get it.
Well, it's just that what is it about Destiny's DLC structure that doesn't bother you as much as it does with some other games?
Okay, so the thing is that the DLC in this game specifically, one side of it, which is being shaders, is the exact same as Overwatch. It's different colors for your character. Yeah. A lot of people freaked out about that because they're one-time use and you get them in stacks of 3 or 5. Mm-hmm. I have 37 different colors, and I have 5 at least now in each color. I'm never going to run out of shader opportunities.
Dude, it was amazing that I beat the game with no shaders.
Didn't you buy, was that you that was playing last night, or was that Joe that was buying all the shaders from Eververse with the bright dust? You can, because you get...
That wasn't me. No, okay. That was Joe. I don't care about the shaders that much.
Well, yeah.
I found the one I like, and I'm probably going to stick with it.
Exactly.
Because of the fact that... and my armor is about where I want it. So as I continue to change armor, I'll pull that one in.
Right.
And I hope I can keep enough of those to make that reasonable.
I'm sure you will, because it's only 4 shaders.
But I will say I was more gung-ho to try new colors.
Right, because there's so many of them.
Back in the first game.
Oh, I thought you were talking about now.
No, I was more gung-ho to try the colors in the first game because I knew that even if I tried it out and thought I liked it, but then I was like, I don't really like it as much as the other one, I could switch back without any kind of repercussions. But in this, there is repercussions.
Yeah. So, well, yeah, because they're all disposable.
Yeah.
Now,
so I'm going to count that as a negative in my part, but I'll get more into what I mean by negative of that because it's not actually the DLC side of it. Well, I guess in a way it is, but it's also just a base. I don't know why they chose to do this with the game, but you finish your thought, and I'll get on that.
Okay, so the main question you asked was, why is this a problem in other games for me but not in this one? Mm-hmm. And this is no biasism. If other games did this, I'd be the exact same way with other games. Is that when playing through this game, the play to win mechanics that you unlock, the mods that increase your weapon by 5, or the abilities that have cooldowns that you can equip on a mod that make your solar abilities faster, stuff like that. I already have so much of those, and I've never spent a penny on this game, and I will never need to buy those because I have so many. Gotcha. They literally made it rain on me with all this stuff. And it was the same way with Joe, and it was the same way with Gavin, because he mentioned that he had a lot of weapon mods because he didn't know how to use them, and I was trying to explain to him how to use them, and it made him rain on you with all this stuff. And another thing is, we don't necessarily know the numbers behind on the class cooldown mods. I don't think that those are really that, like, I don't notice anything differently in those.
Okay.
So, and in PvP, there's not a huge competitive playlist. Like, it's competitive. They have competitive and quick play. No ranking system. So,
okay. So if they introduced a ranking system, would you start having a problem with them letting you use items that you bought in Eververse?
If you
see, like, is there a way for them to do it well for you? So, like, let's say they actually put a ranking system in, which Destiny 1 never had, right?
No.
Okay, I didn't think so. So let's just say they did put a ranking system in for Crucible.
Right.
Would you want them to draw a clear line of saying, hey, these Eververse
weapon
items
mods
are
should not
only
be used.
PvE
or
non-ranked competitive?
Yeah. Yes. And if they did not do that, that's when I'd have an issue.
Okay.
Because I think that, like I said, the way they have it now, the way the amount of shaders, mods, all that stuff that I have, there is so many that I am literally on my hunter subclass. I started with a warlock, and I'm working on my hunter, and I have so many that's dropping on my hunter as well. Mm-hmm. That's like I thought that they're giving me all these for 3 subclasses. No, that would never be an issue.
Quick aside. Which ties into your thing.
Yeah.
How do your, because I haven't made another character yet. You know that. I've only been playing on my warlock. Are your emotes and shaders automatically account wide, or do you have to transfer them into the vault?
They are automatically account wide. I'm 99% sure.
I think your emotes you have to store, but I think your shaders, I could see them being just account wide, but I don't know that for sure. Because Glimmer's account wide.
Yeah. And all your medallions and stuff. I'm pretty sure it is all account wide except for maybe shaders. I haven't messed with shaders on my hunter yet because it's so low level. I'm not worrying about it.
Well, that was just curiosity on my part.
But I do understand why people will be mad about that. But, you know, a lot of that crap came out as the game first released, and they thought, oh, you're not going to get anything. I've gotten so many bright Engrams that it's like, I've gotten all this stuff that you would pay money for. You don't have to pay any amount of money.
Yeah, so they introduced, and I mean, and that answer works for me too. That's actually why I don't get, but I also don't get mad about DLC as quick as you do. And that's actually, when I was asking the question, it's more found on sometimes you are too quick to jump on a game for having DLC before you actually understand it. Like a perfect example of recent was Shadow of War. Right. And you were really hard on it. And then when I actually stopped and explained to you the way the DLC system works, you kind of calmed down and were like, oh, I didn't realize that.
And we have a friend that has bad sources, and that's who told me. And I know exactly, I know exactly who you're talking to. You knew right off the bat who I was talking about. And there was something we were texting today, and I almost texted you like, no, he has it wrong again. Like, that's not true.
Yeah.
But
okay.
That was one of the things of I thought that Shadow of War had literal locks on content that you could not get in single player without paying for it. That's where my problem was.
And see, and that gets to the point of where I actually consider it to be egregious, like a real problem.
Like I thought they were literally locking content behind paywalls in a single player game.
I think from a business standpoint, you understand that publishers are going to want this stuff to try and make as much money as they can on the back end.
Correct.
And I think as long as developers find a way that still satiates the publishers, but doesn't I guess doesn't block any number of players. There's a better word to use than that, but doesn't block any players from getting the stuff naturally. It basically, I do feel like DLC always needs to be, all you're doing is paying to get something you can already get in the game. You're just shortening your time.
Right.
And it's not a big deal. And now, of course, I do agree that only comes to a big deal in games that are like, I mean, I think people would be a little miffed if they were playing Destiny 2 and you could just buy whatever exotic you wanted. That would be kind of BS.
Yeah.
But obviously, I don't think anybody would ever be dumb enough to go that way.
That would probably be the day I stopped playing Destiny. That would be the clear line.
But besides that, I think as long as people are like, well, you're just buying a chance to get something, people are okay. Well, and because you think about it, you always buy loot boxes. They never give you a guaranteed because that's the line.
Yeah.
The loot box is buying the chance. And I mean, I don't necessarily agree with that. I don't have a gambling addictive personality. I do think it's a little bit odd that it's a weird line to straddle because you don't want to give people you don't want to make people automatically be able to buy what they want. You want to give them a chance to win it, but by giving them a chance to win it, you kind of encourage a gambling
buy
addiction.
Blindly. Yeah, because they don't know what they're going to get
in a weird way, and there are people that get stuck in that.
That's my line with World War II. I was going to get that game until I found out you can watch people open loot crates to earn experience to open your own loot crates.
Yeah, it's weird.
What's the model there?
It's very odd.
And they know that Call of Duty has a childlike...
Is it to try and get Call of Duty? I think this is not a point, but as just to finish your little thought, I wonder if it's trying to get Call of Duty in the public eye again because they had such bouts of bad publicity.
I think it's pretty much that they know that people stream Call of Duty. Mm-hmm. A lot of kids watch streamers on Twitch and YouTube now. And I think that if they watch them do that, then they're like, oh, yeah, this is going to be cool. So let me go. I don't know how they're going to compensate for this. Like, I don't know how this is going to work even. But just the fact that they're trying to put that in a game is just kind of like...
It's stupid.
Yeah.
All right, well, I'm going to move off of DLC.
Right. Well, I had one last finishing
thought. Go ahead.
What is something that I was talking about is I don't know how well the cooldowns work. And I still agree that this isn't the correct answer for this. There's no way to prove in PvP that somebody's using these anyways.
Yeah, it's true.
So, like,
well, can you not go and check their? Or you can't check on their class, right?
You could. You could technically inspect their armor and look at all this stuff. Yeah. But like, for you to stop doing that in PvP,
it's unlikely.
Or to think about that when you get done, it's like kind of like you're gonna forget about it. And I played a lot of PvP last night with Joe, and I couldn't tell. Like, I was getting killed a lot at certain times, and I was doing really good a lot at certain times, and kind of just one of those things of like, I don't think people are paying attention to these kind of mods or anything.
Okay.
And if they are, I'm not seeing any kind of difference.
Okay.
I've yet to get killed and thought that was just super, super unfair. Okay. Other than my usual rage. Like, how'd you kill me with that grenade across the map? You know, it's just like, I walked into a grenade across the map.
Any other negatives on your side?
That's really it. Just that one cliche thing, and then that Bungie is starting to kind of walk into the line of DLC and stuff like that. And I'm pretty sure it's Activision kind of poking them towards it a little bit.
It absolutely is, but I mean,
but yeah, like I said, I
feel like they should have fought back a little.
Yeah.
Maybe they did, and maybe this was the result of them fighting back. Can you imagine how much worse it could have been, depending on the situation? I mean, so I'll give them the benefit of the doubt that maybe this is actually the better of the two options they had to go with.
It's not 60 frames per second, which is another big thing for me.
Okay.
I really wish it was 60 frames per second, but other than that, I'm pretty much done.
It's a smooth 30, and I'll give it that.
It is a smooth 30, and I've never seen a drop,
yeah,
but I'm on PS4 boost mode, so.
Okay. Well, I'm going to go into my negatives, and my list is a little longer than yours.
Go for it.
And I'm actually curious because I wonder if some of these are things you haven't thought about because you're still enjoying the game. And sometimes, as long as you're enjoying it, the problems don't seem so big. But the more I've had time to think about it, so the first thing I want to hop into is when you were talking about the shaders, I said I have a specific issue with this game. I don't understand this game's obsession with making everything consumable.
Consumable? What do you mean?
Your weapon mods, consumable. Your shaders, consumable. I mean, everything that you can get besides your emotes realistically are consumable.
Yeah, I see what you mean.
Your ship mods, your spawn, whatever. I don't actually know what that's called. I can't remember. But the spawn mod,
transmute effect.
Yeah, your transmute effect. It's tied to your ship. It's the whole game is so caught up in wanting you to get rid of something that you felt like you earned that it starts to feel almost like a slap in the face for certain things, because certain things aren't quite as easy to get free. Shaders are very easy to get. I have not gotten very many transmute effects.
Yeah, those I've gotten like maybe I think 10 of those total.
But I've gotten a couple of ships, and now if I want to jump ships, I have to leave that transmute effect behind, and that's an issue in my opinion.
See, and I know you didn't play a lot of Destiny 1 in the fact that you weren't trying to get a specific weapon, and you didn't try to grind for specific weapons in Destiny 1, did you?
No, never did, because I didn't care, because I played PvE. That's important too. I played PvE with not a super heavy emphasis on raids.
Well, yeah,
because that's when you start getting into the other side of gear.
And my whole thing is that and this is what I think.
I'm more involved in this one than I ever was in Destiny 1, because this one's more fun to grind.
Especially since we did the Nightfall the first week it came out, and the raid the first day it came out. We were playing the raid, which is pretty insane.
Which is that's rare for me. I didn't do any of that on Destiny
1. But I think that is, and this could be wrong. This is what I think that Bungie's trying to do. I think that since there are no more roles for legendary weapons, I think that everything's static now.
That you're likely to keep a weapon longer?
Well, I think that they're trying to say like, hey, if you want to put this mod on this weapon, sure thing, but you got to kind of, do you really want to do this, or do you want to like try to find something else better for you? Since we don't really know what the meta is right now.
That's true.
Like what's real good.
That's true, but it's just Merciless. It seems like it's aiming to abuse a couple of the people who are going to get caught in the loop of trying to buy DLC just to gamble on what they're going to get.
Fool.
So that's just one. I think it's so weird that they're just really obsessed with making sure everything is consumable.
That's understandable.
And it's frustrating for people who want to be a little more casual, who still want to control the way they look. But don't necessarily are not going to be like, oh, well, I'm going to infuse this because they don't have legendary shards, they don't play enough. Yeah, it's just See, and then maybe people who are a little more keen on, like, there are people that like to change their shader color, like, every couple of days. Like, I just want to be something different.
Yeah, and I know that the light level's like 350 right now is the limit, and I've gotten I think almost all the warlock chests. So like I know that this one looks the coolest. It has a good effect. I'm probably just going to keep infusing up on this until I get to max
which is basically what I've decided with my warlock.
Right, and that's why I know that shaders aren't a huge issue for me, because I think the way I look is pretty cool. The way you look is pretty cool. I think I'm set with that way until shaders go on.
Well, or until DLC comes and there's new gear.
Right.
Because you don't want to stay the same forever.
Right. And even then it's
promote
the raid shader is really, really cool. I don't know if you looked
I haven't seen it yet.
Oh, it's good.
Okay, so moving on to my next negative. And I feel like you're going to give me hell for this, but I don't see how you can, because I've kept looking. I was like, even as somebody who just enjoys the game, like it's impossible not to not see. Okay, the game, for all their talk of moving to a next gen engine, all this talk of making sure they're leaving PS3 behind so that they can do so much more, the game does not look any markedly way different than Destiny 1.
I mean, I can agree to that. There are
and I'll give it, and again, I'll give it its points. So its points stand in that the game focuses on being way bigger and making sure way more stuff's going on. And in a way that's admirable, because that does change the way the game, it changes the way you experience the game. But on top of the game, not only not looking graphically different from just oh, hey, look at these textures or this right here. The other problem I have from looks exactly the same as Destiny 1 is that these are all new planets besides Earth, but still a new area of Earth. And biggest problem I have in this aspect is that when you go to these new planets, besides Titan, which is not even a good example of a planet because of the way it's set up, they all look like other planets from Destiny 1, and they all use assets from Destiny 1. They didn't even make new art assets because they didn't have to.
Yeah, well, there's a couple things there, but a majority of it is.
But that's what I mean. But for the majority, they didn't try making a specifically good new-looking planet. I mean, Nessus looks a lot like Venus. So does Io. They look like Nessus kind of looks more like Mars because of the Black Garden stuff from the first game's Mars, and they really play on the Vex. And then, of course, when you go to Io looks more like Venus looked in the first game. So when you pull all that together, it's like, well, they just reuse as much art as they could, which is just disappointing for it to be a sequel. That's when I start to have what's sequel about it? And that's a personal problem. And I think some people feel satiated enough for it to be a worthy sequel. And in ways I agree. And in some ways I'm just like, I just can't see it being a sequel.
Yeah.
And as an extension of reusing art, they reused all the same enemies. They did not. I mean, for a sequel, I would have liked, and I don't think it was too much to ask, for one new enemy type, one new race, one new something. We even got, I mean, and I'm sure we will get that in DLC, but it would have been nice to see for a full sequel that we actually see something new. I mean, it would, of course, in a great world, ideal world, you get 2 or 3 new enemy types. But I think in a realistic world, they should have put focus on making at least one new enemy.
By enemy types, you mean a complete new race of enemies?
Yeah, or something markedly different that makes them, like the Fallen are a great example. Even though the Fallen's kind of a half and half because it's just reusing models and putting a different texture on them, but it still gave them a marked look and different thing, and they acted different, and there was a reason that they were a different enemy compared to the Cabal, even though this was a Cabal that was just taken.
Right.
All right, I'm using the right word, right? Taken with the little starry looking ones. Okay, that's all about making sure I'm not crazy.
No, I agree with you there. I will say the game looks a lot better than the first one, but
it looks better from a scope and color standpoint. That's the biggest thing to me. I mean, like, you can't look, okay, like Ikora's face.
Well, no, I'm talking about environments when I'm thinking
Okay, but I mean, I'm just going off of everything. The way if you look down at your boot looks awful.
I know.
It looks just like Destiny 1, right? It looks like Destiny 1. Ikora's face looks like facial animations directly out of Destiny 1, actually directly out of a 2010 PS3 game. And that may be seeming harsh, and I get that the game's focus is not you seeing their faces that much, but when the few times that you see their faces in engine, it's like jarring.
I don't think they look that bad. I think that they look about par for a majorly multiplayer game.
I will say 2010 is a big step back, but it looked about like The Last of Us. And while The Last of Us is a great game and beautiful game, it looked like PS3 Last of Us facial expressions, which in today's standard for a sequel of a multi-million-dollar game.
Motion capture, though.
I know, but I mean, there's been other games without motion capture that have still looked better. So I understand. Yeah, I'm just saying this is my particular opinions on it.
And I agree with you on the graphics. I do think it does look better.
But the game's more expansive and it's more colorful.
Yeah.
Besides that, I don't think it looks markedly different. I'd be willing to say, in my opinion, that you could put Destiny 1 and 2 up, show somebody who's never played either one of them, they wouldn't be able to tell you the difference.
It would really depend on where you put them up, because I think some of the environments are beautiful.
Well, I mean, I'm not saying they're not beautiful. They are. The game is beautiful, but the game's beautiful from a scope and scale and color standpoint. The game's way more colorful than the first one, but in weird ways, the first one still had a little bit more awe-inspiring moments because it was fresher. Like when you'd look up at the sky and be like, "Wow, this looks really cool."
Yeah,
and even though you do that here, it's like it's lost its oomph.
Yeah, and I can see what you mean. I just think
because I don't know if you ever went underground. And sorry to cut you off, but I don't know if you ever went underground in Nessus. I was telling you that's my favorite planet.
Yeah,
the reason it's my favorite planet because it's the most interesting change of literally the whole game. In my opinion.
I don't think I.
I want to show you when we get back on.
Is that the lost sector you're talking about?
It's awesome. It's not. There's a lost sector around that area, but the whole area is super interesting looking. And I'll show you. It's like Nessus is mostly up above ground. There's a little bit of but there's one part that's just completely like you're going into the core of the planet almost.
That's really cool.
And it's really cool looking. So I'll give them points where it's due. They did a lot in terms of scope, scale, and color to make things feel more interesting, but at the same point, there's weird other things that I feel like, again, coming to PS4, there is no excuse not to do. When you're beside a waterfall or anything that has water, nothing is wet around it. Where the water meets the dirt is not wet.
I don't pay that much attention to the game.
Well,
you're probably right. Like I can see you being right.
It's the truth. It's the truth. I have no reason to lie, and I think maybe it's unfair expectations because I play so many story-driven games that are very tight-knit, and they want you to. But I mean, a perfect example of a game that looks great in its own way, but is not just necessarily pushing any kind of technical boundaries is Nier Automata, right? That's a game that looks cool and looks great and has a cool art style, but nothing about Nier Automata is necessarily like, holy crap. It's not like it's not like I'm trying to compare Destiny to Horizon. I'm just trying to compare it to more budgeted titles that still manage to do these things.
Yeah. And see, I think
it's weird because you imagine it's a huge budgeted title, right? The lighting does look a lot better.
I think the lighting is what makes it look so drastically different.
I would agree, but because of the lack of depth for certain things, so like I feel like if the water made the dirt look wet, you'd see like a change in color and depth coming up to it. And the world, when you look around, doesn't pop the same way as other games. It doesn't feel quite as 3D as other games. And again, I don't know what it is about it. But the game, I will say, is still beautiful. It's a beautiful game for a lot of reasons. And Bungie deserves credit for building a beautiful world. I just wish they had done so with more of a noticeable jump from the first game.
Okay, I can agree. I can say I will say it is beautiful on my injection in this. It is beautiful, but it could have been better.
Yeah, and I agree it's beautiful. So I mean, we just stand on slightly different sides of how it's beautiful. I guess I think is what we'll say. So going into a couple more of my last ones, trying to think. Got so lost in that one. I actually looked it up because I was just curious. And I never bought silver. The silver does not transfer. And I know that you have a very firm opinion on that.
This is something that's so nitpicky to me.
But I feel like of all the things that could have been brought over, because technically they did bring your character over. We talked about that.
Yeah, you didn't bring nothing else, but just they brought the look.
And I mean, a couple of the things that even if they made them one-time uses again, it would have been cool for them to give you like, okay, here's a couple of shaders that you work to. Can you think about how many people just burn their life away for dumb, stupid extra stuff in that game, like emotes and stuff, or people who paid money for emotes but they're not even carrying over? Now they have to buy new emotes.
That's the whole thing with video games, is that don't spend your money on video games like this and you won't get burned. It's that easy.
Well, I mean, that's easy to say, but for people who don't have that much money, it becomes a very different deal.
Then you definitely shouldn't have been spending money on video games like this.
I mean, I guess, but
I mean, see,
I still do stand on the biggest point, and the biggest, most salient point is that definitely people who did this early when the Eververse first actually came out and people started doing this. Destiny was always sold on this idea of a 10-year lifespan, and they never went into detail of what that 10-year lifespan meant. So it's very easy for somebody to go, if I buy this, I'm going to get a good 10 years out of this. And it's just not quite fair to the people who don't have enough money and just, well, like, you know what? I have a little bit of extra money. I'm going to go ahead and buy the silver, buy this emote because I like this emote. And I'll be able to use it for at least the next 5 years, foreseeable future. It's just a little...
Is that, like, if you bought something in a microtransaction and a new game comes out and it's no longer available, like if Overwatch came out with Overwatch 2 and you didn't have any of your skins and stuff like that, I guarantee you a lot of people... There would be more people who would be...
There'd be people silent about it. Nobody would say anything, is what you're saying. It just wouldn't be a big deal. And nobody's really talking about this.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to say this is a nitpick. Yeah, this is not a widespread.
This is a Triangle Squared exclusive nitpick.
This is not a widespread thing. I just think it's very interesting that they don't let you carry anything over, and the biggest reason I have a problem with that is because of the 10-year life cycle.
I understand the reasoning behind it. I just think that if you are a person who spent tons and tons of money in Destiny 1 and now you're mad because you don't have all that stuff, then like you're not.
I'm gonna give you a
sharp tool.
I'm gonna give you a quick little analogy that I feel like is close enough in relation, and you may think I'm crazy for saying it, but I think it's fair enough. So. You bought your PlayStation 4, right?
Correct.
Day one. Let's just say you buy your PlayStation 4 day one.
Correct.
You start buying your games digitally because you go, you know what? This thing's going to have like a... PlayStation consoles only have a 10-year life cycle. Even if they end up stranding the games on the PS4 console cycle, I'll still have access to them 8 years, 8 to 10 years until I move to another console. And if I get rid of this one, then I lose that access. Okay? That's something you go into. That is an expectation, much like you're talking about with your expectation.
Right.
Okay, so that expectation matches. So let's say that Sony comes out and goes, here's a PS4 Pro. It's a lot like the first one, but it's better, which is basically what Destiny 2 is.
Right.
And it's not markedly different, but it's different enough and good and big enough in areas that some people are like, I like this. I'm gonna hop into it, right? What if they told you when you bought your PS4 Pro that none of your actual PS4 digital games worked on your Pro because it's a new console and you're buying a new console? Why would they move over?
That's not how that works, though.
But I'm saying, wouldn't you be mad? It's expectations of life cycle.
No, because you don't own the license of the item you get in Destiny. You own the license of the games that you buy. This
was just the most that came in my head quickly.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying if you put the situations in similar scale and just kind of
it'd be like
it's expectations of life cycle of a product. And Destiny 2 is just as much a product as PlayStation 4 is.
See, the way they released Modern Warfare 2, they had to buy to pay guns. I thought
you were talking about Modern. Oh, you said Modern Warfare 2. Sorry, I think you were talking about Modern Warfare Remastered.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking of. Yeah, like the way they released that, and they did have loot crates and stuff in that game in the end. If they released Modern Warfare 2, I don't think there'd be a lot of people mad that their stuff wouldn't carry over. That's just something that's never been in video games before of previous purchases carrying over. So it's kind of one of those things you don't think about.
I just think that it would be a little more consumer friendly.
I do
like to imagine that the industry cares more about the consumers that support it. but that's personal again.
Yeah, see, like,
and I do understand the business side of it. So I'm not saying it's totally unfair.
And the problem is that it would take way too much manpower to go through and redesign.
I don't know because again, when
I have to put all the textures and stuff in this game.
Well, again, when I say that this game is not markedly different enough, there's no reason you can't pull the texture into this one.
It's not copy and paste that easily.
I would really like to see Destiny.
I have guns from Destiny 1 and Destiny 2 that look different.
I mean, yeah, that's cool.
It's different textures and everything.
I'm just saying.
It's just, I don't think it'd be copy and paste. I think it's too much work.
I still say people wouldn't care. People wouldn't. I mean, again, this is maybe me, but I don't think I would care near as much if I turned Destiny 2 on and it looked just massively different, beautiful. I'm like, whoa, this is next.
Well, no, I was saying about the texture. I know,
but I'm talking about moving the shaders and stuff over. I don't think I'd care as much if I didn't feel like the game looked just like the first game anyway. So if it looks like the first game anyway, why not? Why can't I look like I did in the first game?
Well, yeah, because that's all you would be transferring over. Because Eververse, I don't think there's ever been a weapon. It's always been armor sets.
Why didn't that's the thing? Eververse items that's basically what my complaint is. Eververse items should have moved over.
Yeah.
Anything you spent real money on should have moved over.
See, I just don't like.
But it's okay. I mean, you know.
I think that if that starts becoming the new trend of games, this is going to get even worse. So because it's going to incentivize you to buy it. Like, buy it. You'll have it in the next game. Like, no, because that's going to make this to become more and more of a calming trend.
You don't want to be able to carry your stuff over?
If they make it to where you can buy stuff to carry over, then it's going to become more and more common for people to buy it because they have less fear of it going away. And the only way to
that's actually a good thing.
No, that's the bad thing because that's going to fuel more microtransaction stuff.
Well, as long as the microtransactions stay this way, I have no problem with that.
But it depends on what they are to game. Microtransaction as a whole needs to die.
If it died, you wouldn't have Eververse.
That's fine. I don't need it. That's not a quintessential thing for Destiny.
Well, if you don't have Eververse, you don't have Bright Engrams. If you don't have Bright Engrams, you don't get any of the cool visual stuff you're talking about.
Then they would have put shaders in a different way. But they would have put shaders in the game as a different way if this didn't exist.
Maybe. I mean, that's a good point. That's a good point.
But go ahead and go on to your last one. I feel like we went too long on that one.
I don't know that I have a last one. I know that I do because every time I play the game, weird stuff just pops out at me. Well, okay, I say every time. That's gone. I basically accepted all of them and just moved along with it.
Because you're having fun.
Yeah, exactly. Because I think, okay, I'm just going to say that's my last complaint because those are my major ones. The ones that popped in the mind first are going to be the major ones. Okay. So with that being said, I think the most story. As a quick, I'm not talking about story stuff, but story just as a quick. I think the story's good.
Okay.
I don't think the story is as good as you do.
I do think it's really good, but
and that's
just because of certain character interactions we'll get to here in a minute.
And yeah, my nitpicks of the story will come into the spoiler side of this. So for those of you who have beaten it, I think that everyone I've talked to kind of understands where I'm coming from for some of these things. And of course, stories are all just particular preferences anyway, just like everything is. So again, the story is much better than the first game, regardless. But now that we're at the end of this, we're going to go ahead and flip into this positive mode, and I want to say, from a positive standpoint, regardless of all the problems I feel like this game does have, it is super fun.
Oh, it is.
And it's way more fun than the first game, in my opinion.
It is. There's something, I don't know what it is. There's just something about the satisfaction in this game you get from killing enemies and throwing down grenades and doing your super and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Only one thing in Destiny 1 allowed me to feel that kind of satisfaction, and that was the sun. I can't remember the name is. And that was my main super class in Destiny 1. The Solar Warlock. I can't think of the name. Sunsinger, yeah. Because when you did your super in that class, your grenades would constantly refill. So you could just spam grenades. And then you had the Starfire Protocol, which gives you an extra grenade, an extra fusion. Then you had it to where your fusion grenades would do crit damage while they were burning. So then you could just stack grenades and everybody else. It almost like you tethered them with the Warlock.
Yeah, that was your fun gameplay. That's what made you feel. Okay.
I play mainly Voidwalker, but I'm playing more and more into Solar, kind of going back to my roots.
Okay.
The fact
that's where I'm at. I'm doing Dawnblade and
I like it.
I like Dawnblade a lot.
It's a great class. Now,
I haven't done enough Voidwalker, but I've done a little bit of the Arc.
Well, just
Stormcaller is what it is.
It's satisfying for me to, as a Voidwalker, take a grenade and eat the charge, not to devour, but to then throw the grenade out and it have those bombs that follow enemies. I feel like I can wipe out 5 or 6 enemies with one grenade, and it just feels so good.
So we're all agreeing. I think on all the good points we're going to agree. There's no reason that we really wouldn't from the conversations we've had.
That's
so the game's incredibly fun.
Yeah,
and
the strikes
I want to break into why
good.
it's fun. Yeah, the strikes, while they don't feel just leaps and bounds above, They are a little bit bigger.
They have more mechanics,
and they have more mechanics inside of them.
It doesn't feel like
almost more. I don't want to say raid-like,
mini raids,
but they feel like mini raids more than they ever did in the first game. And I've always felt like strikes were supposed to be mini raids.
Yeah,
the first game just never hit quite home on that.
It feels like lost sectors are a much smaller spell of what strikes were in Destiny 1.
Yeah, it's
where
true.
it was run A to B while wiping out enemies and killing.
And I mean, much smaller scale. Yeah, but yeah, you're right. Of course, you're right.
Because Destiny 1 had like the Dark Blade. And there was a couple mechanics in that one, like getting the battery charges and stuff. But other than that, like that was probably my favorite strike in Destiny 1. Other than the new Steva strike we had with Septix, whatever it was called.
Prime.
Yeah,
that was pretty cool.
But I think there's only one strike that I don't necessarily love doing.
Inverted Spire.
No, I love that one.
Okay.
I love that one. I love Pyramidion. Pyramidion? Yeah, Pyramidion. That's the one with the Vex. It's almost like a mini vault of glass. I don't think you've done it yet. It's real fun.
Probably
laser beams.
Yeah, there's one strike I have. 2 strikes I haven't done. No, okay. I've only done 4.
That one's a good one. It's the what is it called? Savathun's Song. Yeah, that one. It just gets kind of old because of the.
It's
pacing.
Cool the first time.
Yeah,
it's not as fun concurrent times.
And what gets me is that
which one's the PS4 exclusive? Do we know?
I think it's that one.
Sabbathu Song?
I think it is.
Okay.
If it's not, it's another.
From a story perspective, it's cool.
It actually might be Pyramidion. I don't think it is, though.
Okay, well, we don't know the answer to that one, but come on.
But a lot of things about strikes that's weird in this game is that you can get the same rewards almost, except the Vanguard tokens, than you can as a public event.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, like, I will say, though, that when you finish a strike, all the crap that comes out the chest is so cool because you're actually getting way more rewards.
Feels more rewarding than just having items pop up on your screen. Yeah. The chest is a cool addition.
It is.
And I think it's a cool addition even when you're dealing with high profile targets too.
Yeah.
And how they drop a chest. Yeah. There's something that's satifying about that.
And the lost sectors are fun.
Yep. And some people and I mean I don't want to go negative. I don't like that the lost sectors I was going to say something that's not right because I learned last night. My assumption, because of the way they appear in your map, is that once you do them, they're not bright anymore. You can go back and run them, even if they're dark. I thought you couldn't. But the fact they don't markedly change in any way, like not even just a little bit of like, oh, here's a different boss at the end, or here's a different thing. They're a little too structured. Yeah. And I feel the same way about the region chest. Region chest, great idea. Super fun to find first time. They never move. I would have at least liked them to have moved it 3 different places. So every time you go to find it, it's like where is it?
I was doing the thing earlier where I was waiting for Joe to hop online. He said he was getting online in like 20 minutes. And I was like, I don't want to strike because that's gonna. By the time I get done with that, he'll have already been online and waiting for me. I actually ran to EDZ and ran around looking for chests. And this time, what I find fun is
this is like the most you've done that though, right? Because you haven't really spent too terribly much time.
I'll say this is about the second time I've
done. Okay, it's really fun when you don't know where they're at.
Yeah, I look at the map very briefly. And then I don't take out my map again when I'm near it. I just go, I look at my map, I'm like, okay, it's that way. And I go that way. And without looking at your map. Now,
well, because the maps are scaled so weird to me, I do open it again to make sure I've gone in the correct direction, because sometimes the sense of depth on the map versus where you are, you feel like you didn't move as much as it says you did on the map.
Yeah, that's true.
And that's something I'm still trying to get used to.
I'm sure by the time that I do this a good enough times, which I'm not going to do it a lot. I'm just going to do it, when I'm waiting on people or something to give me a little something to do in between strikes.
I'm using
by the time you know where all them are, that's what I'm curious is if the locations change at the weekly reset.
They don't.
They don't?
They haven't yet.
Okay, I knew
if
something
they add that
changes
in,
between lost sectors and that. Weekly
if they add that in, I will be extremely excited.
That should be something they add in, though.
That would be really cool because as a tie-off as to what you're talking about with those being fun, I think that the most fun part about this game is that you now have easier and more fun ways and more accessible ways to grind than just running the same raids and strikes and nightfalls.
And the results for grinding now is very generous compared to the first
one.
time.
And they're just... something about being able to go and be like, oh, I'm just going to sit here and do a bunch of public events. Or I'm just going to sit here and do patrols. Yeah. Or I'm just going to sit here and let I'm going to sit here and go, okay, here's where all the chests are. Or I'm just going to kill high-profile targets. Or you can mix and match as much as you want. You can go in with one singular thing. Like I'm just going to find all the lost sectors and go ahead and run through them because they're fun in their own way. Definitely when you're waiting on people, which is interesting because waiting is a big part of what I like about this game too. But I'll move on to that in a second. This game feels so much more like it respects your time more than the first game did.
Oh yeah,
and that ties into the waiting thing too. So in terms of the grind part, I feel like I've been able to grind by just going and doing something more unique. And by the time I get tired of going to planets and just looking around, which I've almost found, I think I have found all lost sectors and all regional chests now.
Then you go run a strike or something.
So now I can go run strike playlist.
Yeah.
And when I get tired of that, we can do whatever. It's like moving along. And I think then I can start doing, okay, well, hey, here's a new flashpoint. I'm going to go do a bunch of public events and get the flashpoint. And because everything has a way of being tied into some form of reward, the whole game feels like it's constantly trying to reward you for spending your time playing it. Whereas I told you, when it came time to grind on the first Destiny, early days, I was literally running strike playlist, and I would do sometimes 4 strikes in a row and not get anything even close to better.
Now, I will tell you that I have hit the wall. I have hit the...
There's going to be a wall.
I'm at 282.
Yeah.
So my issue is that now no gear that I have...
And we are sure that 350 is the cap? Or is it 320?
That's a good question. We have seen people over 300, so we know it's not 300.
Yeah.
And I haven't taken enough care, really, to look into it.
Yeah, me either.
But I will say, though, that now anything that drops from me, I'm doing this purely to get legendary loot and new... guns and different guns, different exotics, different armor and stuff, because I can only now get gear that is important to me from the milestones, the Nightfalls, which is a milestone, and the raids.
Okay, so what I've been trying to figure out, because I'm getting to a point where I feel like I'm not getting stuff that's just very noticeably higher, or it's really close to me. Whereas it used to be,
at 265.
yeah, but not necessarily blues. So when you get legendary items from the Engrams that you get from Zavala, and Ikora, and all these people that you do things by, you get your clan ones from Hawthorne, and the way they build that. The gunsmith from breaking down blues and being able to go and get the gunsmith ones that actually end up giving you a better chance at getting new guns, which is good, because the game everywhere else seems a lot more focused on giving you new armor. The gunsmith specifically is the only one that gives you the mods that we were talking about, which is good, because pretty much every time you get an Engram, you're going to get at least one mod and one weapon, and every now and then a weapon ornament and a weapon, but most of the time you're getting a weapon,
a mod and a weapon.
A mod and a weapon. So with that being said, have you gotten past the point where you don't feel like those are beneficial to you at all? Because at that,
the Engrams?
Oh yeah, getting the tokens and stuff, like even the EDZ people, like going to the EDZ and talking to Devram and...
Oh no, see, I still like doing that because it gives me different gear. And I like playing around with all the different gear that it gives me.
Okay, but at this point, is it giving you gear that's actually bumping your level, or is that kind of quit?
No, see, now this is the end game part where you can only hit max level by doing your milestones, which is included with the Nightfall.
Okay.
And then you can do... the raid. The raid is where you're
and clan stuff. It seems like because the clan stuff is giving you those luminous Engrams.
Yes, and that's the one in between exotic and legendary for your reward.
Okay. So that's a little disappointing, because it does mean eventually I have to hit a grind wall. But at least it's much more of a gap between normal play and the grind wall than it ever was in Destiny.
See,
1.
what I'm thinking is that, and this is what was similar to Destiny 1 was. You can almost have a set week style of things. Like Monday, you can run the Nightfall. Then on Tuesday, you have the Nightfall reset. Then you can do Tuesday and Wednesday, you can do Nightfalls and your
strike
milestones and your strike playlist. And then Thursday, you could do your raid. Then Friday, you could have like PvP or something. You could do a weird combination of things. And of course, Friday, Xur gets there. That's my big thing, is that since we haven't seen Xur yet, if he sells exotic Engrams, those are going to decrypt at your level. So my thing is
that makes sense. Yeah.
Is that I'm really, really hoping that he sells exotic Engrams, because all of these legendaries I'm getting from doing all these other things like strike playlists and stuff that aren't my level give me those shards to buy the exotic Engrams.
Exactly.
So it kind of keeps
I went from having almost no shards to have like 80 something now.
I have 89. Yeah. No, I have 109.
I figured that you'd be higher than me because I've been infusing a little more than you.
Joe went from 50 to 74 in like 30 seconds.
Yeah.
And I still have a vault full of stuff. But I'm stuck at that point of where I almost dismantled Merciless because I don't use fusion rifles until they were like, no.
For the raids specifically.
Literally, well, any boss, because anytime you don't kill somebody, the rate of fire gets faster, and it becomes a scout rifle after 3 shots, where you just press the button and it fires off a fusion rifle shot.
That's cool.
It is very cool. It is a very cool weapon.
Yeah, I need to build that again.
Yeah,
but I'll need to get something that I can infuse into it to make it relative to me again. Which
is something weird. That's not a negative to me, but it is an unnecessary hoop and hurdle. I understand why it's there, But the infusion system, I don't have a good sword to infuse a legendary sword up to.
Yeah, and well, okay, there's a lot of issues with that because I feel like what we've already talked about, if they would just let you do transmog, a lot of this stuff goes away. But your reason is different
for
still,
light level.
But I do think transmog is important to mention that there's no way to control your look and still keep your stats without it. Your stats are going to be tied to whatever look you're going for. And infusion is the only way you can keep your look. But if you like the look but don't like the effects of the weapon that has that look or the armor that has that look, then you're stuck with that.
And I'll do the same thing I do in Dark Souls. I don't care what it gives me. As long as I look good, I look good.
Yeah. Which is good because the armor stuff is pretty cool in this. And I mean, of course, if nothing else, an upside to the art downside I gave earlier is that while they didn't do a whole lot of new art in the worlds, of course they had to do new art for all the armor,
the weapons and armor and stuff that look really cool.
That's important.
So, and like the Rat King weapon looks sick.
Yep.
So they have some really good design on stuff like that. So the raid, we did about half the raid, or I did about half the raid. You did almost half because there are elements in there that repeat. Like the very, very beginning, the very first thing you do with the horde almost.
Yep.
Repeats every time you defeat a main part. And what we defeated last night was a main part.
So with the relic?
Yeah. That's called a challenge. You have to go through these challenges. So this whole thing is we did the first part, then we did the thing we did last night that took us forever to get down, but we finally got it down.
Okay.
Then it was another part one again, and then we got to a third part.
And I haven't seen that third part.
And that part is something that we had a guide in front of us. We all were looking at the same guide and we could not figure it out. It's like a puzzle. And it's crazy because in raids, what typically happens is you go through a mini puzzle, you go to a big old room, you do something in a big old room, then a boss comes out, then you fight the boss. There's no boss yet. I don't know what's going on in this raid. There's no boss. Normally a boss drops a chest and you get raid gear that way.
Wouldn't it be crazy if this raid has no boss? I'm sure it does.
Boss, I have not spoiled myself.
I mean, like, what if it literally is you run through the whole raid and it's all challenges?
I already know the ending of the raid.
I know, but it would be really cool.
Yeah, I already know. Actually,
in a weird way, because some people will be like, "Well, I didn't get to find anything," but I think it's more interesting to do something unique like that than to just do the obvious raid thing of, "Well, here's the big boss."
Well, there's actually a really cool story behind the raid that it kind of tells you when you fight the boss. It's really, really cool, and I'm really curious on how they're going to do this.
Okay. Well, where do we stand to end up and wrap up? Because this is going a lot longer than I thought. But where do we want to wrap up our positives?
General, I think this is pretty much good for non-spoiler talk. If I had to rate the game, I'd say 9. I know you don't do numbers.
Yep.
But
if I had to rate the game, fun. And my caveat that I've put on every single sentence that I said about this game being good, doesn't matter how good it is, how fun it is, whatever. I will forever stand by. Not that it should have been. I don't want to say that because that discredits that game discredits the game in weird ways. What I want to say is that there's nothing about this game that couldn't have been DLC.
I disagree with that statement, but I am really glad that it's not because I feel like it brought a lot of new people to it, and I think that's what this game deserves.
And I mean, if that's true, I don't know. I'm assuming we'll see that. And information-wise, at least eventually, we'll kind of see number of players versus number of players, and maybe be able to infer it that way.
Probably because it was during the week of release. At 2 different points in this last week, it's been number 1 on Twitch with 1.5 million viewers.
Yeah.
So
either way, it's a caveat that doesn't discredit the game in any form or fashion. I still think it's a great game.
Yeah.
But I think it's important that it needs to be said from my opinion and my viewpoint.
And of course, I may be doing more so in-depth review on this. However, I feel like I've already said everything I would say in that review, so that may be useless. But that would be subject
I would like to
potential
see
change.
Yeah, even if it's just your pilot.
Yeah, because it'd be a scripted thing, which is something you guys may want to keep out for. We're still have in the works on that. But on to the story spoilers. We're going to give you guys a solid 3 seconds. So go ahead and leave here.
Spoiler.
If you're still here, I hope you can pause it. The ending was really, really cool. The resolution to this arc, at least. I am really, really curious if the Traveler or the Speaker's dead.
Yeah.
They follow that.
That's important. So now that we're into story parts,
right.
I'm going to do the same thing I did at the beginning, and I don't want to spend too long on this because I don't feel like we're naturally anyway.
Yeah, like I'm
going to start negative.
For an overall thing, we could say we enjoyed the story, but we have our quirks with it.
Exactly.
Okay.
So my quirks and where I stand on the negatives of the story, and I actually have talked to quite a few people who, without me even saying anything to them, have said the same thing. So I'm definitely not alone in this. My biggest complaint with the game, story-wise, is that the game did not give enough weight time or seriousness to losing your light.
I agree to this.
Now, I'm going to go more wild than you could ever imagine, but I had a full conversation with one person, Mr. Reptar. With him, I just asked him if he'd been playing it, and then he started telling me all the things he started thinking about. And I was just listening to him, and I was like, whoa, this sounds an awful lot like me. He enjoyed the game more after the story. I do too. I actually think the story is the most forgettable part of this whole game. It doesn't mean it's bad, but I think the game takes all these weird holds that the storyline puts on you when you're going through that, and the game opens up and flourishes way more when it gets out of the mud of the story.
Yeah, I feel like, and this isn't me insulting it, but I feel like that no matter what in a Destiny style game,
it's gonna be that way.
It's gonna be a hoop you have to get across to get to end game.
It's only disappointing because I like the idea of having a reason to continue playing the game after experiencing just a really beautiful story.
Yeah,
but. Go ahead. What were you gonna say?
I was gonna say like something else that happened in the story that would give you a reason to play or lore to play until the DLC came out.
Yeah, that'd be interesting.
Okay.
So with that being said, going back to the light thing specifically, where me and Reptar said it before I did, I was like, whoa, I thought I was the only one crazy enough to really think this way. I feel like the entire arc should have been you getting your light back. I feel like getting the light back should have been the very ending of the game. I feel like you beating Gaul and freeing the Traveler should have been your moment of redemption.
That would have been...
Because it would have pulled away from what I think you were saying earlier as the number one cliche of being the chosen one, being this super special person.
That actually wasn't my cliche.
Really?
Yeah, because I knew that it being a first-person sci-fi style that's multiplayer... In an RPG multiplayer like this, I mean, it's loosely RPG, but you're always the chosen one. I've gotten over that qualm. It's the sun. It's having to use the sun as a funnel for a weapon.
Yeah.
And destroying Mercury.
That is very much.
Star Wars did it. Almost a huge Dune, I'm pretty sure, did it. Huge sci-fi things have done in the past.
Okay, well, that's also a cliche. But I do want to say there are RPGs that are great that are you are not the chosen one. The Witcher 3 is a perfect example. Nobody treats Geralt...
I'm thinking more like Zelda or Final Fantasy.
Nobody treats Geralt as a chosen one.
Right. You're a Witcher.
And see, and in that specific situation in all these games, you're the chosen one for no reason that's ever told. At least in a game like Final Fantasy 15, you are the prince of a bloodline that was specifically meant to do this.
Yeah, and see,
again, there's more story credence to why you would be chosen. And you're not even necessarily chosen; you're of a chosen family line.
I think the story in that canonical sense falls apart when you
see other Guardians also.
No, that doesn't bother me.
It's a problem of it being an online game.
Yeah, I'm sure that there's a reason for that because of online, but it's the fact that you unlock one subclass and then you go to another shard and unlock another, while Zavala and them are still have no light. Like, why are you taking the light? However, somebody did point out on Reddit, and I don't know the lore this much to know if this is true. They could say, and this funnels back to you, is that the Traveler chose you. That it wouldn't give the light back. I don't know why that would be, because you're probably the main character. That's probably why.
Maybe it's because, well, yeah, I mean, that's probably the reason, but it would have been nice because that's the other thing is that when I got the light back, I kept waiting for the game to explain to me why it was me.
And see,
and it never does.
The main characters of the game, like Devram, Sloane, and Hawthorne. Hawthorne is the only actual rememberable one I think that there is.
Yeah.
Sloane kind of just hangs out on Titan, which you really would...
Devram gets annoying because he's too British.
No, it's not even that for me. It's
that was a joke, but he is extremely British. I just wanted to say that.
He drinks your tea. Devram isn't that annoying to me. I mean, they're not annoying.
No, none of them are annoying.
They're
none of them are as involved as I would have wished.
They're just really forgettable. And my whole thing is that there are two characters in this game that make the story. Technically, there's a 2.5 because the console does a pretty good job of making you feel for Gaul near the end. But Gaul and the speaker, they're when those cutscenes came up, when that weird cheesy transition would come up of like almost like a Far Cry style transition would come up, I would be like, I got to listen to this because this is going to be worth it. And every time those cutscenes happened, it was great. But and that goes for like the CGI. I'm waiting to
see where you're going. Come on.
It does this. And towards the very last cutscene, I really felt bad for Gaul because he even says, like, whenever he gets imbued by the light, totally, after you beat him as a boss fight, he's like, so you do see me. And it's like, this is sad because he is somebody who was picked up from a young age as like a little war turtle. And wait, that's a Pokemon. I meant like a war turtle. Like, tortoise.
Okay.
Because, Cabal like turtles. But it's kind of like, that he's picked up from a young age and wants to be recognized, and he doesn't get to do things in a proper...
It humanizes him.
Yeah.
Exactly.
A sincere way.
The game does a great job of humanizing Gaul. He's still... Okay, and
then we have Mal Reynolds. I mean,
for every great thing that you're talking about here, those cutscenes are great. They're probably the highlights of the story. But the problems start there, too. The only cutscenes in the entire game that you're in is the very first and the very last.
No.
Tell me another one.
You're in the one when Cade's stuck in the loophole. You're in a couple.
Well, no, I'm talking a cutscene. Not an in-engine cutscene, because those aren't real.
Okay.
I'm talking, you are only in a cutscene at the very beginning.
Yeah.
When you're in the ship, when you see yourself with
Ghost.
I mean, if it is an engine, it looked pretty good, but even then, it was more focused than the ones that happened.
Yeah, because Cade says, like, let me know you're understanding me, and then you go to speak, and then Ghost cuts you off, and you're just like, what? Like, I finally get a line, and you're going to take it away from me? Which is still kind of weird.
The fact that they moved away from a speaking protagonist, interesting. But I thought it was funny that they did that because it was like a tongue-in-cheek thing, and they knew that they weren't going to have
anybody. It made people so mad. I didn't care.
I almost forgot that people spoke in the first game.
It wasn't much. It was only like
me and Joe were
dialogue.
talking, and I was like, the only reason I even remembered is that weird scene when the woman on the moon finds you when you're going into the...
Yeah.
I was like, that's one of the only times I remember talking.
Yeah, and then you do talk when you get your ship at the very beginning.
Yeah, so, but past that, going specifically into... Lord, what were we talking about, Saul?
Just story. Okay, just in general with Gaul and the
so Gaul's saying.
And the speaker.
The fact that you're not seen in the fact that you are not given any kind of a reason.
It's almost like you as a player.
You do not, you as a player,
yeah,
not as a character.
Your character doesn't know what's going on as far as Gaul does, so he has no motivation.
Exactly.
For Gaul, which is kind of one of those things that
it's a mixture. It's actually it's that and then the exact opposite. It's the fact that as a character,
it's no first-person narrative.
Yeah, as a character, your character does not know anything that's going on.
Right.
You have no reason outside of getting the Traveler back to want to even fight Gaul, which I guess that's enough of a reason. But then the flip side of that is because your character is never in the game, you as a player, not the character, never get the moments to feel like you need to kill Gaul. When I literally, normally what I love about boss fights is when you get to them, you're like, I hate you, you bastard.
I actually felt that way.
I don't even want to say hate because most good bad guys make you like them. And you almost begrudgingly respect them in a weird way. But in this one, I was like, I don't even care that I'm fighting him right now, aside from the fact that I know the fight will be at least interesting.
Yeah.
From a gameplay mechanics perspective and partially from a visual perspective.
Yeah, I never felt that way. I felt sad for having to kill Gaul. I was like, I understand why I'm having to do this, but I think that the banter between the speaker and Gaul, and I told you there's two specific instances, of course, and some people will say it's not a plot twist because they already predicted it, or that they think they
and me and Joe are both firmly on that side.
Yeah, because like I guess there is like half glass full thinking of this, is that you could have thought one of the way or the other, but you would always
it's reasonable that you would have thought one way or the other.
Yeah, yes. and you would always assume that the Traveler was speaking to the speaker, and he was telling you, or at least in a lore or religion style way of like, this is what the Traveler's doing, I'm speaking for him, and in fact he never did anything.
Okay, what I want to talk about, and it's something I talked about with Donovan when we were in a party separately the other day, when we were just playing, you weren't even on yet. I was telling him that what's interesting about the Travelers, the Traveler speaker situation is that it's actually pretty akin to the Pope. The Pope does not talk to God, but the Pope is appointed to talk on the behalf of God.
Right, but I think there's a weird cloak and dagger there or smoke and mirrors where there was an assumption that the God did talk to the Pope in this case.
I think that some people took it that way. I never did. I always viewed him as just a figure that basically spoke on behalf of the light, but not that the light spoke to him, or the Traveler spoke to him.
I always thought that he was not direct communication, but some kind of psychic communication, or at least was told, like, he was almost, excuse me, I'm hiccuping. There's a pilgrimage of, this is what the Traveler's going to do. This is what you need to speak for the Traveler. And this was kind of something of that he was supposed to be, at least, maybe, like I said, psychic, possibly. I'm not sure.
Telepathically speaking.
Yeah, telepathically speaking.
To be fair, if he was speaking to the Traveler, it would have been telepathically anyway.
You're right, yeah.
With the way that the Traveler works.
Yeah. But I guess other than that, I thought the story was much better than Destiny 1. Much better,
but I still have higher hopes for DLC to capitalize on moments in more meaningful
ways.
ways.
I'm sure
the
they
last
will.
thing I want to touch on that I thought was a good point of the story, since we're trying to flip into what we liked about the story. So you liked some of the Gaul stuff. You thought the Gaul stuff was highly interesting. I do like Gaul. I think that the cutscenes were good. And the last negative thing I'll say is that the cutscenes, while they were more than the first game ever had, were still slightly too spaced out. There needed to be moments where they focused more and pulled more into a story perspective with these big cutscenes.
I could see.
It would have felt more rewarding.
I mean, either or with that. Like, if it was, I'd be fine with it. But if I'm not terribly.
I mean, honestly, the same. But if I'm saying that it's something that
you would have preferred.
I would have preferred it. Yeah. But it's not necessarily hampered by the fact that it's not there.
Right.
So that's the last negative I really want to touch on. In terms of positive, yes, the story is much, much better than Destiny 1. I mean, it really is. Even when you go into the DLC stories of Destiny 1, they still weren't quite as strong as this.
And see, I'm curious because Taken Fall, I think, improved a lot in the Destiny lore of Destiny 1. It had actual cutscenes.
I mean, Taken King?
What did I say? Taken Fall? King's Fall. Taken King. I got those mixed up. But I think that improved. The missions for that story were really good. I think
they were a lot
better than the first one.
They did a cooler job of giving you. They actually, I felt like, gave you more of a reason to dislike and want to kill Oryx than they did for Gaul.
No, see, I don't.
Well,
I don't think so.
You had more of a build up to him. There wasn't a build up to Gaul. That's the biggest.
See, what ruined me in Oryx is that the way Oryx's lore works.
Maybe I'm already forgetting the story, and this is finish what you're saying.
No, I was just gonna say the way that Oryx's lore works of how he's in an interdimensional thing. So you know that anytime you actually kill him, you're not really killing him.
Yeah.
So it just kind of felt like false pretense.
I guess.
But I will say that this next expansion coming out isn't a big one. I don't think this is going to be the Taken King for this game.
No, I don't expect
it
that.
May be
but
House
I mean,
of Wolves or something. I'm not.
I'm hoping for Dark Below at least.
See, even then, Dark Below didn't have a sufficient amount.
No, but it was better than House of Wolves.
Yeah.
So maybe I'm forgetting the story, but I don't remember there being a real build up to you getting to Gaul.
What do you mean?
Okay. I'm trying to compare it to another game, and that's not. It's going to sound wild that I'm comparing these two because I'm not comparing them in any other sense than just. I'm saying what one game gave me a feeling of versus what I wish this game would have gave me a feeling of. You know, the ending of Horizon,
right?
When you're building up and it seems like things are getting more and more insurmountable, but then you keep finding that way to just push through and push through and push through. And then the last boss is so hard, but the way the mechanics work out, there's like this sense of triumph that I don't feel like the game built up Gaul's boss fight enough for when you beat him for it to feel triumphant.
The way I feel like that the way they handled supers in that fight, I feel like we should have gotten supers. I understand why, because the Traveler is granting you the light to beat him.
Yeah, from a story perspective, that was cool.
But yeah, I don't think though that
because it was the light granting you something while he was stealing his power.
I felt
that
like
was cool.
that was the best time because now we're seeing raid-like elements in strikes.
Mm-hmm.
That would have been the best time to incorporate raid-like puzzles in the story.
It would have been cool.
And they didn't do it. You know, and it was kind of disappointed. That's why I said the story. If I had to if I bought this game for the story, after beating it, I would feel like, dang, that's a good story, but I'd also feel incomplete a little bit.
Yeah.
But I don't think anybody's ever bought Destiny for the story alone.
Okay.
I'd be
wrapping this up. Do you have any final thoughts? Because I have one. It's technically not story.
It's a great game, and if you're a fan of Destiny 1, you're gonna like it.
If you're a fan of Destiny 1, you're gonna love this game.
And if you weren't a fan of Destiny 1, you might want to check back with the things
there's
that you
more to
didn't
like.
because there's a lot more to like.
And some of the things that were a little annoying about the first one are much more recessed.
Yeah.
Or they're not even there.
Right. And that's one of the best things about it.
Yeah.
And I would go to say is that even if you're one of those Destiny 1 fans that dropped out before Taken King, there may have been stuff that got fixed in Destiny 1 that they didn't think to check back.
That's true.
Seth was that way.
That's true.
I was talking to Seth about Destiny back at our family reunion, and I was like, dude, they fixed all that stuff way before Destiny 2 came out.
Yeah. So my final is technically a negative, but not really. It's going to be campaign. So from a campaign perspective, I'm glad I wasn't alone on it. Even surprisingly, Donovan agreed. He was the one who brought the question up. I was like, yeah, that's a good point. We stand on very different sides of this. I'm fairly positive. I could have done completely without the vehicle missions.
I loved them. So much.
They were too Halo, not enough Destiny. It didn't even feel like a Destiny game.
Oh, I loved them so much. And
it didn't feel true. It didn't feel true to the first game in any kind of a gameplay sense or mechanical sense to me.
I don't care. There were no big.
And I just thought they dragged on.
I think that was a great way of almost like an homage back to the Halo.
It doesn't to flip what we feel. I don't think any of Bungie's games have ever had excessively good mechanics for driving. Like, I don't feel like their vehicles have ever handled in any kind of fun way to me. Even in Halo, when people were like, let's get in the Warhog and go act a fool, those things controlled like shit. I hated it.
Yeah, they had weird control schemes.
And they still do. But I mean, even the Sparrow, which I like probably the most of any Bungie vehicle, is still annoying to me in a lot of ways.
Oh, you should try Sparrow Racing. Dude, it's so fun.
I haven't done it because I don't like the way the Sparrow controls.
It's not in Destiny 2 right now either.
No. Well, I'm good.
I'm good. I think that,
I mean, the triangle squared seal of approval is given to the game in the sense that if you even have an inkling of a I may like this game, I may want this game, I think it's worth the money to try it.
And I think that the amount of time that you can potentially spend in this game, if you're just having a first-person itch or an itch to play online with other people, that even PvP, I would think that once you get to a certain part after playing by yourself, that it's worth it for PvP. Because once Trials of the 9 come out, I think that's what the new Trials of Osiris is. Once that comes out, once Iron Banner starts getting in rotation and stuff like that, it's going to become that thing of like where, hey, let's go jump in Iron Banner. And that's where that's where the grinding gets so much better, because where I'm at that wall, Iron Banner is going to get you that good gear.
But Iron Banner, if I'm not mistaken, is the Crucible stuff, right?
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the Crucible right now.
Damn.
We had fun on Iron Banner in Destiny 1.
I never played Iron Banner in Destiny
1. Yeah, you did. I'm 100% sure. You didn't play Trials of Osiris.
I didn't play.
You did play Iron Banner with us. Yeah.
Very end of the game, and I thought
it was going to I'm talking about when the Seagull.
You're right. I forgot.
No, we played a good amount with you and Joe. I remember it very vividly.
I was only doing online for the platinum that I never got. That damn elusive platinum. Anyway,
and I'm actually very close. I'm missing like 4 trophies.
Time to bring this to an end. Thank you for watching or listening to this bonus episode. And we, like we say, we do it on games that we feel like we have enough to say about. In this game, even though me and Saul stand on different sides of it, we still stand on similar sides of it. And I thought that's what would make this one interesting. Turns out it's so interesting to me and him, at least, regardless of what you'll tell us if it was interesting, hopefully.
And we had a good time playing with RJ Loki.
We did.
So
it was
shout
very
out
fun.
to him.
Yeah, very fun. So tell us what you thought about the game. If you haven't picked it up, I would be interested to hear why. So tweet at us, put it down in the comments below, and if you haven't, like and subscribe on YouTube. If you listen/watch us on there, and if you listen to us on podcast services, I'd really appreciate it if you guys would give us a rating and kind of a review, and kind of give us an idea of how we're doing, so that we kind of know what we want to do moving forward. We would like to make sure we want to get to a point where we're making more content, so things like this will be a little more common. And we also just like seeing how we're doing from a general perspective, and it also gets the numbers get us up there a little bit higher, so people find us easier. So outside of that, Saul, I think this is a wrap on another bonus episode. So thank you so much for listening, and we will see you when the normal episode launches on Monday.
Thank you, guys.